there, welcome to my channel. My name is Linda. I just really hate my hair today. It's not a good hair day. Don't look at the hair. Look at what I'm saying. Did I say my name is Linda? Welcome to my channel. I have some fun crafts for you today. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. What I want to know is every time I go to film, I have a horrible hair day. And then when I'm not filming, I have just like the best hair day ever. Why is that? Ah! Today we'll be working on some home decor wood crafts. We'll be using the same exact techniques on both of them, but strangely enough, we'll create two different looks. Let's get started with project number one. For this project, I'm using some of these slat boards I get at Dollar Tree. Now they're about 1 3/4 inch wide, about 17 3/4 inch long. If your Dollar Tree doesn't have these, you could go to a home improvement store, find one about the same width or whatever. 1 8-foot board should, be perfectly wonderful for the size we're doing here. First thing I'm doing, of course, is I just want to add wood glue to the sides of these slat boards to get them all glued together. I'm laying them on top of a canvas board because the canvas board's probably about 1 inch tall, but that is so because once I get them glued together, I want room below it so I can bring in some clamps and clamp it. Okay, getting the last one here with some glue on it. Right, and then I'll come in with a clamp, one on each end and one in the middle. Once I get it clamped, I'll take 2 of the shorter boards from Dollar Tree, the slat boards. I think these are about 12 inches long. It will be longer than our main piece here, but that's okay. It'll get cut off anyway. Adding some wood glue. Off camera, I will add some nails to these as well because, these are not perfect slat boards, and some are a little bit thicker, some are of course not as thick, and so these shorter boards don't quite make full contact with it. So by adding in the nails, I'll make sure I have that extra stability and make sure it's all together well. And of course, as you saw, I just laid some heavy paint cans on top and allowed that to set up. Now I do have a free PDF pattern for you. This is just a hand-drawn pattern. What you do is cut the 2 pieces out. It comes in a 2-page PDF file for you, and then you'll just tape it together at the dash lines. I chose a couple of patterns online that I liked, and then I just put in the parts that I liked and hand drew my own, so it's not perfect. But here it is for you. I think it looks like a little kid's piggy bank. I love it. So now I'm just taking a Sharpie marker and drawing it where I want to on my slat boards. I'm more over to the left because at the right side, there's a lot of space between our imperfect slat boards here, and I don't want that much space in there. There will be some that I like once you see after I cut it out, but I don't want that much. Those are a little bit too wide of spaces. All right, once I get it drawn here, I will take it outside and I'm going to use my jigsaw to cut it out. I tried to create the pattern so there wasn't too many curves and tight spaces and things like that so that you could, cut it out with the jigsaw, of course. And if you just kind of take your time and you go a little bit slow around those curved areas or where, 2 junctions meet, to cut it out, it actually works very well. I think this was the best pattern I've cut out. It didn't have too many, slipped spots where I made a big jagged cut in a corner or anything like that. I think it turns out really good. Now, if you didn't have the means to a jigsaw and cut this out, you could take the pattern, you could create the slat board, just like we did the background, and take the pattern and maybe trace it out onto some cute scrapbook paper or something like that, and, do a cute patterned pig or something like that on your slat board would be super cute idea, if you know what I'm trying to say. Versus cutting it out of wood, you have your background and then you use the piggy pattern to cut out of cute paper or fabric or something like that. You could use the piggy pattern to make a cute piggy pillow if you wanted. It's just, some ideas for you. Now I'm coming in, of course, with my sander here, and I'm getting everything sanded up. Now for this piggy, I actually kind of like believe it or not, the imperfections of the slat board, that some boards are thicker and some are not as thick, because it just kind of gives a rustic look. I'm making sure as I go around the edges, I really like to kind of, I don't want sharp edges, so I'm really kind of sanding those off really well. And I'm sanding a little bit more to kind of get the glue off, because I wasn't trying to be, you know, neat with it at all. This is what it looks like. You can see my nails on the back. I've got spaces like up in the ear and stuff like that between the wood, and that's okay because it's super cute, but not too much space, but just a tiny space. I'm going to use Waverly Antique Wax mixed with water for this project, and my Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color Drop Cloth that I love. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is take that Waverly Antique Wax, and I'm going to do a stain on the piggy. I love using this as a stain. I say this every time I use this as a stain, that I love using it as a stain, because I do. It's inexpensive to use, and it goes a long way for, what is it, $7 a jar at our Walmart. You know, lasts like a long time versus paying, you know, $10 or $11 for a can of stain half that size. All right, now I'm going to bring in, this is a really cool star. You can get these at craftingwithkimber.com. She's got lots of different sizes. I will have the link down below for you. I'm going to be using one of these stars and one of these chunky wonking hearts as well, wonky hearts as well, from craftingwithkimber.com. It's one I was going to use on another project and didn't, so I'm going to peel the paper off because I want a different color paper on that. I'm going to go ahead and stain the star, but the heart, I'm going to leave that black paint ready for us. Off camera, I went ahead and sanded everything, distressed it how I wanted it, and now I'm going to come in with that Dixie Belle drop cloth, and I'm just going to kind of do a heavy staining, a heavy paint through the center, lighter in some areas, a little heavier in others. This is a little scary for me because at this point I'm like, I'm messing it up, but it will look really cool in the end. But even on the next project, as I kind of go to do the same thing, I'm like, I'm messing it up. No, it's not. It's going to be cute. It's going to be cute. So I have to keep my brain thinking that. And as I come to the outer edges, I'm just kind of doing a dry brush to, you know, get that paint to look like it was intentional, right? And then I sanded it off. This is what it looks like. So I know there's barely any there. You're like, why did you even paint it? So I could get this look. But the dry brush around the outer edges kind of brings it all together. I went ahead and sanded the outer of that star as well, and I traced it and cut the pattern just about a 1/4 inch shorter all the way around, and I'm going to use this on the paper that I'm going to actually use to cover the front of the star. And then once I cut that out, you know, we get it on our star. With the paper being a little bit shorter all the way around, it'll allow us to see that little bit of staining around the edges of our wood star. Like I say, otherwise, why do we even paint it if you're not going to see it? This is the way it's going to look once it's done. We're not quite done with the paper yet. I'm going to go ahead and take the old paper off this heart, and then I will trace it onto the new paper I want to use because these reds don't quite match. Tracing it on the back side. This was paper I was going to use on a bigger heart that I didn't, and I saved it, so glad I did because, you know, I can use the scrap piece, right? Cut this out, doing the same thing a little bit shorter all the way around so that we see that little bit of black paint around our heart that's already, you know, sanded and distressed a little bit. This is what my paper looks like. It's going to be really cute. And then I'm going to take it to my sewing machine, and I'm just going to sew around the edges of both of my papers here. And using the needle in my machine, I usually use like a size 9 or 10 needle, and I've just got it on a straight stitch and about 4.5 on the tension. Perfect. And I will go from paper to fabric to fabric to paper. I don't change the needle unless I need a different size because I'm doing thicker fabrics or something like that. It doesn't dull my needle or anything, and it works perfectly wonderful. And I love to do this because it just adds a country look to it. Now, often I just kind of use whatever thread is in my machine. As you can see here, it's really subtle. You don't see it a whole lot. I did for a minute think about maybe I should go redo it with the darker thread. I'm like, nope, it's done. Now I'm coming in with the open end of my scissor blades, adding a little more texture, a little bit of shadowing around the pieces, and I scrape along the edges of the papers here just to give us that little bit of texture. And by doing this, it adds that shadow, like I said before, and it'll allow the paper to kind of pop up off our wood a little bit. I'm using my Beacon Fabrica glue to glue my pieces on. Get both of them glued on here. Perfect. And now this is some rusty wire. I do have a video where you can rust wire and metal pieces for yourself, but sometimes I just don't feel like doing that. So I, go on Etsy and I order it already done. I'll have the link down below for you where I got that wire from. And now I'm just taking my Crocodile. This is the Crocodile Big Bite. It just has a longer reach. So if I need to get, further into wood products or whatever I'm using to punch some holes, I can do that. So I've got my holes punched and I've got just 2 long pieces of wire here. I'm threading to the holes and making it so that the wire comes out the back side. I'm going to end up covering the holes anyway. I did briefly think like maybe use it like a button, but we're going to add a button later. And once I get those through the holes, I'm just going to do a little twist on the back side of each, where the 2 wires come out. And then I'm taking those ends and wrapping it around the end of a paintbrush just to give it some curly cues here. All right, and then I'm going to come in and just I'm laying the star down, figuring out where I want my kind of curly cues to land and come out around the edges of the star. And then I'm going to use some Excelsior here. I believe you can get this at like Joann's. Dollar Tree might have some. I don't remember. And I'm going to lay some Excelsior down, glue it in place a little bit with the Fabri-Tac. And I'm going to add Fabri-Tac to the back of the heart and the wires and everything and lay that right in the center of my pile of Excelsior here. And then I'm going to set like a heavy paint can on top of it because that wire is going to want to pop back up, but that Fabri-Tac glue holds it perfectly fine. While we're waiting for it to set up, I'm going to add an actual button, and I've just threaded some twine through it, and I'm going to make a little bow on top of that button. And that gets some long tails of the twine hanging down. I like longer tails. And before I glue the heart down, I'm taking some black chalk paint. I'm mixing it with some water, and we're going to add some splatters on our project. Just needed a little more texture around here. Not too much, just some areas with just a little bit of splatter. I don't, like I said, don't want too much. I just want a little bit here and there just to kind of bring it all together a little bit. I like the way that looks. Some areas is a little heavier in splatters. Some areas is a little bit bigger splatters. I like how that turns out. I like to dip it into the paint and wipe off the excess and then tap my fan brush to get my splatters. And then once I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and glue my heart down where I want it. I'm going to glue my button down. We'll take a look at how this looks at the very end of both projects. And that makes this project complete. Let's move on to project number 2. For this project, this is a large round cutting board. They can be found at Hobby Lobby. I actually won this through a dessert auction at our church. We're trying to raise funds to, get some improvements and things done downstairs in our lower level. It was a charcuterie board filled with nuts and fruits and chocolates. It was oh so yummy, but now that that's gone, I have this board to work with. And then I'm using one of these wood circles from Dollar Tree. I'm going to just kind of cut this lower piece off right here. The bigger board, I will outside sand it off because there's a finish on there, and I'm going to be using vinyl. It's very hard to get vinyl to stick to these cutting boards with finishes on it. So I will sand it all off outside and kind of lighten up that stain. All right, so let's go ahead and get this cut. I'm taking tape and taping down my ruler because it always moves when I try to cut these things. Using a craft knife, the wood is thin enough to do that. You make 5 or 6 passes through it, and then you can kind of, snap the board back and forth to get that off of there. And then, of course, I will off camera sand the rough edges at the top where I cut that. Now I'm using a woodward here and a couple of hearts that I cut out with my xTool M1 machine. All right. If you don't have access to an xTool M1 machine, the hearts and the woodward gather without the ED on it. I know that can be found. You all probably have this in your supply from, fall time. Woodward Gather. I will have a free printable for you. We'll discuss later on. You could retype up the printable or whatever, because I'll have the fonts for you below as well, and make it a little bit more present tense and use up that Woodward Gather that you have. Or you could go to like Etsy, and there's lots of shops that will do specialized cuts for you for the Woodward if you wanted it Gather with the ED on it, but just to give you some options. So that's what I'll be using. I'm going to use this ultra flat black camouflage paint to spray paint the Woodward. All right, so here's my board. It's all sanded and ready to go. I'm going to use the Dixie Belle drop cloth paint, the Waverly Antique Wax mixed with water. Remember, same techniques. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to come in and just do a little stain on the little board here from Dollar Tree as Bella walks through, and we'll get her tail in the mix here. She walks through to look out the window that's right in front of us here. And then I'm going to come in with the drop cloth paint, doing that same technique right through the center, thicker in some areas, a little bit lighter, dry brush around the edge. Thought goes through my brain, this is looking ugly, I'm going to mess it up, but wait, nope, it'll look cute. Remember the last project where we can make this work, and it does work. It looks really cute. And of course, once I get all that on, I will sand and distress it outside off camera to lighten it all up and get it how distressed I want it to look. And this is what it looks. Nope, not yet. This isn't what it looks like when it's done. I'm going to come in with the stain and paint one of the little hearts, the little heart, and come in with black chalk paint and paint the bigger heart just around the edges, because we'll cover that up, and I will distress those too. And now here's what my board looks like, all distressed out with that paint. And then we're going to bring in some scrapbook paper here, although I do change the brown dot to a black paper. It looks better with the black lettering and the black vinyl that I'm going to use. And we're going to do just the same as we did the last project, because remember, it's all the same techniques, but we're going to end up with two different looking projects. You're going to be amazed by it all. I'm coming in and just redrawing that pattern perimeter about an 1/8 inch shorter all the way around. And then, of course, that's what I will cut out. And no, of course, I'm using the other side. I won't be using this side. This is double-sided paper by Tim Holtz. You can find this at, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Joann's, scrapbook.com. Double-sided paper, Tim Holtz. Love his brand because I love the distressed of it all. And then, of course, I'm tracing the two hearts, and I will come in and redraw the perimeter, pattern perimeter here. And then, of course, I will cut that out. And then we'll take it to the sewing machine. Wonderful. Did the other one off camera. I'm bringing in my VEVOR sewing machine because I have comments from you all that you don't use your VEVOR anymore. I do use the VEVOR, but I have different machines, and oftentimes if I pull out a different machine for something else, it just sits up for a while. I don't want any of you to think I don't like the VEVOR sewing machine. I do love it because it is, very lightweight. It's very, very powerful, though. Every time if I haven't used it for a little bit and I pull it out, I got to find my rhythm on the foot pedal because it just goes when you hit that foot pedals. You got to kind of work with it to find your rhythm, but it's great for beginner. I've not used all the different fancy stitches. I don't really do that with any of my sewing machines. I just pretty much use the straight stitch or the zigzag or something like that, but it is a good little machine. But I did want you all to see I do use this machine. All right, I will have a link down below if you're interested, because for this machine it's a nice little price, inexpensive price for it. Okay, so now I'm coming in with the open end of my scissor blades and I'm scraping along the edges just like I always do, but just like we did in the last project, so everything looks similar. Gives us that little shadowing around it, just as if you went in and maybe, dry brush some ink along the edges to kind of, give you that little bit of layered look, so it's not just flat paper sitting on flat wood. Okay, I did this all the time with my scrapbooking stuff, and so I just kind of carry it to this as well. It's something you could easily do, especially if you don't do any sewing. This adds texture to everything. Okay, so now of course I'm using my Beacon Fabri-Tac glue and getting all my papers onto my wood pieces. And then we're going to come in and start with our quote. All right, so this is part of the quote. Like I said, I will have a free printable for you. Did I say? Yes, I said that earlier because I said we'd talk about it later. Free printable up in the upper left corner. I did two options for you. This one is without the heart, And then I made one with the heart. If you just wanted to print the whole thing off and maybe Mod Podge it onto some wood, print it off onto some pretty scrapbook paper, maybe Mod Podge it onto, you know, a cutting board or something like that. So I gave you 2 design options here. Part of it, of course, my design is going to be in vinyl, and then I'm going to add in the woodward to give it a little bit of, you know, texture. And I use my Cricut design space to do all this for you all. Link in my description box to my blog, of course, where you can get that free printable. Perfect. I'm going to get this on first because it kind of goes right up against our little half circle shape, and getting this on, it can help me judge where the rest of the quote needs to go. See, now my painted area behind's looking a little better, isn't it? Doesn't look like I messed something up. And then I'm getting the top put on here. I just measured everything 10 times because I'm really like, everything's got to be perfectly neat, and get it into position before I pull the transfer sheet off. And I'll go ahead and glue our little half circle at the bottom. I'm probably about 1 inch away from the around the table part of the quote down below. So I'm erasing my little lines here. I will put my lines where I need them to be so I can just go right in and get things taped down. There we go. And then I'm adding my regular crocodile, adding a couple of little holes here over to the side because it's going to get covered up anyway. So I can get our couple of pieces of wire through our heart, just like we did in the last project. We added wire through the stars. Now we're going to add wire through the heart. And it's going to be that same rusty wire again. It's like the same tools, the same techniques, everything, but have I said it 10 times already? It looks completely different. Again, I'm kind of twisting the 2 pieces of wire on the back, hold it in place a little better, and then wrapping, my camera's moved, sorry about that, I hit it with the paintbrush, wrapping the wire around the paintbrush handle here, get our little curly cues. The only thing I don't do is add the button with the twine, so I guess that part is a little bit different. I did think about it though, but I decided I didn't like it. And getting these how I want them to be, I'm adding the little Excelsior down at the bottom. Just glue a little tidbit on there. I almost wasn't going to add any of that, but I decided, nope, I'm going to do the Excelsior and the wire just like we did the other project. All right, and then I'm going to get this into position. But I thought it just needed just a little bit. And then, of course, I'll put a paint can over it to hold it. Heavier one. Then we're going to go ahead and get our gathered word into position. I went ahead and added glue onto the back of this off camera because it takes a little bit of time. I really love when I'm designing something, you know, putting print and cursive words together. I think it makes such a statement. And I use that black flat spray paint and a couple of coats so that it really just kind of stands out a little bit, but matches in with the rest of the coloring, of course. So we get the rest of our word on here. And then we'll add our little heart on top of our big heart. I'm only adding glue to like half of it because the heart hangs off of the bigger heart, so you don't really need glue over there. That there, and then of course I'm coming in with our black chalk paint mixed with water and our fan brush, adding some splatters around it. I mean, look, how many times have I said it? Same technique, but 2 completely different looks. I loved how this turned out. And that makes this project complete. So I hope you like how both of these projects turned out today. I'm not exactly sure which one is my favorite. I love the cutting board because I just think it turned out really beautiful, and I love that it's like gigantic and it packs a statement. But I love the piggy because, well, it's just a piggy. It's simplistic. It doesn't put a lot on there, but it still looks really cool. I mean, in fact, both of these, I mean, we didn't have to have a lot of fancy stuff, and they both look completely different and really cool. Leave me a comment down below and let me know which one you liked best. Please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps my channel to grow. If you walked in here for the first time, you're just checking things out, you're digging what you saw, make sure before you click off you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on another project from me. Before I go, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. Jesus, in his love and admiration for you, came to earth to seek and save those who would believe in him. He came to call your name and bring you life. He came to hear you, teach you, and give you peace. He came to leave nothing unfinished. Jesus has called you to love one another. He has taught you how to live life through the words of his book. He calls everyone to do something for him, whether it be being a mom to the children he has entrusted to you, or to take a job that he wants you to be in, or be a friend to someone he puts in your life, maybe feed a stranger, or give your time to a widow who just needs someone to listen. He is taught, no matter what the call, to leave nothing unfinished. Jesus taught you to pray. When you need his help, when your hope seems low, when you have nowhere else to turn, you pray. Jesus prayed. He sought refuge, crying out for his Father's help. And when he knew what had to be done, he prayed for strength, grace, peace. There is one name above every name that hears your cry. So lay it all down at the foot of the cross. Lay everything bare. Leave nothing unsaid. Leave no word unfinished. Jesus has taught us the healing power of faith. He will never turn you away. He is always your help in time of need. Your faith must be strong enough to believe this without a doubt. In his word, Jesus often stated to those looking for healing, your faith has made you well. So when you seek to touch the edge of his cloak and your heart is ready for healing, Jesus will not turn and look past you. He will turn and see you. He will see you, and your faith shall heal you, and he will leave nothing unfinished. Jesus loves you. In fact, in his divine orchestration of love for you, he gave his life so that you would have the strength to face tomorrow. He gave his life so that you could be free. He gave his life so that you would have life more abundantly. When his life was finished, just as he said it would happen, 3 days later he rose from the grave and now sits at the right-hand throne of his Father. His streams of grace, power, and mercy flow down from his heavenly throne into your heart. He gives you life everlasting. With his life freely given, and with his power on high, he made everything complete. He left nothing unfinished. I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye.